Welcome to Tea Time with Shayleigh and Amber. I'm Shayleigh Evans, and I'm a life coach for pets and their people. I'm a truth seeker, and it's my passion to empower others and to give animals a voice along the way.
I'm Amber Leidick, and I've been a performance horse trainer focused on behavioral issues for over 20 years. My current passion is creating impactful in-person and online events and collaborating with professionals to be on the leading edge of positive change in the horse industry.
We are two friends invested in theta healing, belief system work, animal communication, and any resources that benefit human-animal partnerships. So turn up the volume and let's dive into the Great Awakening, brought to you by our horses. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Today we are super excited to be talking with Stacia Strong. Hey, Stacia.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. We're super excited to chat with you. Stacia is a friend of ours. She has hosted several clinics. That's actually how I met her. No, I didn't meet you that way. I met you through talking to your horse. And then right. I went to a clinic. Yeah. I was thinking that we met at the Celeste clinic, but that's totally not true at all. That's so dumb. So for anyone who doesn't know you, can you just explain a little bit about whatever wants to come to your mind about yourself?
Well, thank you for having me. And I'm not really good at talking about myself. So what can I tell you? I own a boarding barn in Mooresville, North Carolina. I have actually owned a boarding barn pretty much my entire life. So I think we built our first barn when I was 20. I boarded horses there. I think I had like 12 horses or something. I almost finished school. I was one class shy of getting my bachelor's in human services. And because we were building a barn and a house, I didn't finish my last semester, but it was fine. I learned a lot of great things to help me work with people. And I've pretty much just been in horses my entire life, since as far back as I can remember. I've been in horses.
That's awesome. You know what's so funny to me too is I had a lot of you and I have such parallel stories. Like anytime I learn something new from you, I'm like, oh my gosh, because I almost didn't finish my degree. Well, when I got married, I decided that I wasn't going to go to vet school and I was going to move with my husband. And then I forced myself over the span of 6 years to get a 4-year degree. And I was basing all my self-worth on it. And then it came in the mail in its little tube and I never took it out. I shucked it in my closet and never used it. But speaking of your boarding barn, I know a little bit more intimately just because I'm friends with you, but I feel like the boarding industry is such a difficult place. And I talk to so many people every day that struggle with finding the right boarding facility and the right, care for their horses, and everyone has all these different needs. And how do you maintain, the energy at your farm and being able to meet such a diverse, populace in the barn?
I think that the people that I attract has changed, from where I was 20 years ago and 10 years ago and even 5 years ago. And I mean, heck, even a year ago, I'm attracting different people now than I used to attract. I think I have a pretty good feel of people. When I meet them, I either, yes, I like them and I know that they could be part of our barn family, or I get a feeling and I'm like, no, you might be a super cool person, but I'm not sure if your energy really aligns with what I want to have here. And because I live at my barn, I'm super picky with the people that I allow in to the facility. So I've been in this area for so long, and because my husband did large animal vet, he knew a lot of people in the area and I knew a lot of people in the area. So we basically, if anybody would ever, contact us about boarding, we kind of already knew, yes, you would be able to come out and have a tour. or maybe not come out and have a tour. So we know a lot of people in our area, but it's really cool in the last couple of years, the shift of people that are actually coming and part of the barn family now. Like it's just changed from where
Someone's
Oh,
at her
yeah.
house, I think. So her dogs are happy. Well, yeah, I wanted to bring up that conversation because Amber and I are releasing a barn boundaries thing in the next couple of weeks. And it's such a hot topic, like having boundaries around the barn. And, mostly we talk about how people are creating boundaries for their own horse or their own needs, but I feel like it has to go both ways, right? Like the person who owns the barn, they have to have their own boundaries and their own sense of well-being, especially when it's at your house. I feel like that's such an intimate thing. And a lot of times, yeah, you're paying for a certain service and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I feel like barn boundaries, it's a hot topic.
Yeah, we're so careful with who we let in, especially because my house is literally like right next to the arena. And I think people don't realize what it's like to have a bunch of people outside of your house all the time. Like when it's reversed, it's like I don't think they think about when you're at home, what it would be like to have a bunch of people everywhere and why it's so important to make sure we have, a right crowd of people. And we definitely do, but we're not full. But it's like when people come in, we joke and we're like, first off, if Luna likes them immediately, we're like, okay, that's like step one. And then the next tier, because even people she does like, she still will bark at them like the first 20 times they come. But there's some people that she immediately is like, hi. And I'm like, okay, with my clipboard, like taking notes during the psychological evaluation.
So, Stacia, everyone has that one special horse that has kind of changed everything for them. We know you have one, but would you like to speak about him on the podcast?
KD is who actually connected Shayleigh and I, because Vanessa was like, oh, you should really have this friend of mine talk to KD. And I'm like, oh, cool, sign me up. So that was how I first met you, Shayleigh, was from KD. So I look back at this and he really is the horse that has like changed. I mean, he's changed everything for me, but then I think about the people that he's connected, like the little trickle down effect from him has been so big. I got him maybe 5 years ago and I imported him and I was like, I'm going to get a baby that doesn't have any baggage and I can teach him whatever I want to teach him. And we're going to do all these great things. And I was always really like ethical. And I was like, I'll do whatever he wants to do. Like, I want to do dressage, but if he doesn't want to do dressage, I'll do whatever he wants to do. And whatever he wanted to do was not teach me anything about riding. So he taught me everything that doesn't have to do with riding. But it was funny because I have a friend, Liz, and she was like, oh, I cannot wait for you to learn from him. I cannot wait to see what he teaches you. And I was like, what is he going to teach me? Like, what do you mean? Like, what is he going to teach me? I'm the trainer. And ever since that day, he's been like, here, let me teach you something else. So anyhow, he is the horse that has changed everything.
I know, and I just think of him being like if Amber were a horse because he's like the he is like in the sense of like he's like the collaborator. Like he's kind of like, okay, you need to host this clinic because you're going to learn this. Now you need to learn to trim my feet yourself. So you're going to have this clinic where you meet this person. And then you're going to go to this dissection where you learn this. And so can you speak a little bit about your journey, whatever comes to mind as far as, why you haven't learned about riding and what you feel inspired to say about, the bigger story, which we now know the Great Awakening, that this mass consciousness of horses have been talking about, a move away from entitlement, human entitlement to their bodies. And it's just so multifaceted. And it's so interesting because I was thinking the other day, like, man, my piece really started with bro, but then I'm like, when did I very first start thinking about this? And it was totally Curdo. Like he started that, like you are not going to be entitled to my body or my state of being or whatever. So what does that journey kind of look like for you guys?
Yeah. Originally I started him out just like people traditionally start horses. And what started happening was I was getting hit with a lot of no's. And I knew something wasn't quite right. And it was constantly like, he would do great for a short amount of time. Like, but there was just always something that wasn't right. Like, why was I injecting his hocks at 4.5 years old? I'm like, something's not right. There was just, things weren't lining up. I couldn't really get great answers with my husband being a vet. I was always like, oh, you can fix this. You can fix that. Like, you can go in there and fix all these things. And he was kind of like, I don't know what else to do with him. Like, there's nothing to really fix, but the stuff that he presented us with, it was a lot of training issues, a lot of just hard no's, super, as Shayleigh and I, we used to joke all the time because we would be like, dude, like, give us a little bit of a warning, like turn the volume down. Like, you don't have to be so dramatic with your nose. And he was so dramatic with his nose. And it was probably more that I didn't hear the little no's that led up to the big full on hell no, like, get off me. I think it was a really, really hard shift when I decided, like, all right, well, I'll take a little time off. I won't ride him. We keep starting over. We keep doing all these things. And a lot of the people that I rode under, like when I would go off to clinics and stuff, they were all super kind, but they were just like, yeah, it's just kind of naughty behavior. Like, just get him focused and just keep going. But it still didn't feel right. Like, he would go and he would do the things for me, but it was just like, I just knew something wasn't right with him. So I was definitely stepping back, learning new things. His feet have always been an issue. So I think he's always just had very funky feet, offset hoof capsules, and the bony column alignment has never been really very good. And I think that was when I finally was like, I'm not going to ride him. I'm not going to ride him because of his feet, but I knew stuff in the body was still kind of funky. And that's what led me to, oh, I used to only host riding clinics. And then it went to, well, I'm just going to host some in-hand clinics. Then it went to, well, now I'm hosting clinics to learn how to work on the bodies. Now I'm hosting clinics to learn how to work on the feet. And it led me to a dissection last March down in South Carolina with Dr. Sharon May Davis. And the horse on the table was ECVM. And we had heard very little bit about it prior to Elsie's dissection. And when Sharon said 33% of Dutch warm bloods have ECVM and show symptoms by the, symptoms start around age 8. And my horse was going to be turning 8 that July. And I was like, I think I might need to have these x-rays done. So I did have the x-rays done, and he is ECVM, and it does explain a lot, but he also doesn't present like the regular ECVM horse either.
Can you explain to people that don't know what ECVM is in a way where they could understand?
It's the equine cervical, vertebral malformations. So he is missing the lower right tubercle of C6 in his neck with possible transposition onto C7. It can involve sometimes changes through the first rib. Sometimes they don't have a first rib, or they just have a little rudimentary first rib. So it can present a lot of problems under saddle. A lot of these horses, where the muscles attach, the attachments, if that tubercle is not there, like, where did the muscle attach? Scalenes can split, whereas, it's such a complex condition, and they don't know. They're working on trying to find out more about it, but it's every time they think like, oh, I think we have something maybe nailed down, then something else presents itself in another dissection and it changes. So there's a lot of vets out there who say, oh, this doesn't really cause any issues for the horses, but it really causes issues for the horses. And I've had a couple in my care that have also been diagnosed with it, and they are more on the extreme side than my horse. I don't think my horse is that extreme right now, but it makes things make sense. about him. And now I understand why I got so many no's from him.
It's so interesting too how it presents, because when I think about Bro, I just remember having this osteopath out and she had his left front pulled forward and she stuck her hand in that pocket in between the pectoral muscles where she was going to like adjust a first rib, and he was so lame for like 6 months after that, and she kept sticking her hand in there and she's like, I can't find his rib, like I have no idea where the first rib is, like I can't find it. And I was like, okay, well, let's stop looking. Like it's not there. And that made me think like, oh my gosh, like he's so, because I did the balance through movement work with him, and I did a lot of body work with him, and you could get him stabilized to a point where he didn't have leg length discrepancy. Like he could stand square on both legs and he wasn't like kind of twisted to the right. But then if I didn't work him for like 2 days in hand, he would immediately get like 3 inches longer in the right front. And he had this massive quarter crack, like his front feet were total shit. And it's just so wild how the personality of the horse plays into it, the heart of the horse, their lessons for us. Like I love this conversation because I feel like sometimes things can get written off when we think about kissing spine or ulcers or this or that, because some horses are more willing and some horses aren't, and their personality is so, like, that plays such a big role. With Bro, he was never explosive. He was so willing to do everything that I asked under, like, in hand. I didn't ride him under saddle because the thing that kind of really bothered me was that he couldn't hold his feet up for more than 2 seconds for me to trim him. Like I'd have to hold, like, like he just really couldn't stand on one leg. And but he was so willing, but he was extremely spooky. And then you talk to other ECVM horses that have been competing upper level eventing for like years, and they're doing the work, and it's like it's so wild how diverse it is. So how do you feel? I have so many questions, so I'm like, how do I segue this? And not to take over, because sometimes I do this on the guest podcast. But I am curious, like how it has changed things for you moving forward, knowing that you have a horse that you can't ride, knowing that there are people out there who can relate to your story and who might say, well, if you can't ride him, like, what's the point of him? Like, how do you find connection with him, and how has he led you down different avenues?
Yeah. So I've totally been there where I was like, well, if I have a horse, I'm going to ride my horse. Like that's what I have my horse for. And I absolutely don't think that anymore. I get so much enjoyment out of just being around him, and then the lessons that he gives me. And it's honestly, it's like every time he opens a door, well, I say every time he opens a door, other people might look at it and be like, damn, why do these things keep happening? Like, my poor horse or whatever. But I look at it like, oh, this is another opportunity for me to learn something from him. And I remember several years ago, it's like every time I say something, he's like, here, let me show you. I was like, gosh, I wish and you were at the clinic, Shayleigh, you were here, and he was full on whacked out, like walking around on his back legs, just like totally out of it. And I was like, man, I can't wait for him to be like Copper, where I can take him in the ring and people can learn from him, right? Because Copper, which is my other horse, you could just do anything with him. Like he is just like, put your hands on me. You can teach me anything. Anybody can sit on my back and ride me around. And KD was just like, oh, hell no, we're not doing these exercises. And I don't want to be in there with all those people. And you remember that? And we walked him out of the arena. Mm-hmm. We were trying to work on him out of the arena. And he was still like, F off. Like, I don't want to be any part of this. And I'm like, man, I wish he could be like Copper, but Copper's the teacher and KD is just KD. And then, what a shift that's been.
Yeah.
But I think that it's hard to make that shift and to see the horses as something other than just riding them. And it's hard because I've taught riding lessons for 25 years. My job has been to teach people how to ride a horse. We would do a little bit of in-hand work, but the in-hand work was still so that we could get on and ride the horse. So it's not just shifting me with my own personal horse, but it's shifted my entire business because I made a living off of teaching people to sit on them. Like that was what we did. So I think it's a journey, and everybody is going to go through it at their own pace. But I think once we have that shift of, I'm not entitled to ride this horse. I don't need to sit on this horse. He's not made for me to sit on. I'm not opposed to riding. I think the horses can be ridden, but I think that there's a lot that goes into it first. And I really think the relationship is a huge part of it. You know, you have to stop seeing them as we can just get on and ride them.
I think the fun part about him was that I don't remember what it was. If it was in one of our workshops or something when we did a mirror session and it was online, and I had everyone's horses like up on the screen and everyone was sitting in different places. And I just remember him and you in the covered arena. And as soon as we started, he was like, "Oh, this I can do." He was all over her and just like over the top of her, and then down into the next her and just like, "What is this? I'm into this." And I was like, "Oh, this is so fun to watch." I took little screenshots, and I don't ever usually do that, but since I knew you, I was like, "Look at how cute these pictures are."
I know. And I had never done that with him. And I had never had that with him. Like it was super cool. I didn't know he was even standing over the top of me, until I got those pictures. I was like, oh my gosh, he was like right there. But it is so, so cool. And I think the biggest thing is he's just kind of taught me to stay open-minded, which I've always been open-minded, but to look deeper. And I think I have high expectations of him, and I had them of myself. And he's like, no, like you don't need to have such high expectations of yourself or of him. So as I have let my expectations go for him, I've been able to do the same thing for me, which is, it's not just my relationship with him, but he's kind of been like a good reflection for me to be like, oh, now, take these lessons into your own life, like the lessons you've learned with me, but now apply them with yourself. So that's been pretty cool too.
I feel is really cool is that he's kind of teaching you so he's demanding that you allow him to call his power back, right, in so many different ways. But then he's kind of saying the same to you. Like he's like, you are going to trim my feet and make those executive decisions. You're going to learn about what, tack fits me or whatever, blankets, whatever, body work, like call your power back. Why do you have all these different people looking at me when this is between you and I? And I still remember, I usually forget conversations, that there was like one conversation we had where we were really trying to figure out what was going on with him. And this is why I think it's so cool to work with people who are open-minded too, because initially KD really presented as a metabolic horse, and I didn't know about ECVM at the time. And so I didn't have an intuitive symbol about it or anything. And thankfully, like you were so open-minded and, you pulled him off grass. He did get a little better, but I think it was probably a combination of like, where he was or whatever. But it's just so interesting how like not being so, I was going to say not being closed-minded. I guess that is what I want to say. Like just being able to have an open mind and know that there are other possibilities is like such a big thing. But then taking your power back by learning. I feel like you and I are constantly talking about, oh, we're taking this class this week and reading this book and doing this. And like, it's so fun, the quest for knowledge.
Yeah. And I think things don't always present like they seem. It's like, sometimes maybe it is exactly what it is, but other times it may not present like we think what it is. And we just have to keep digging and keep, again, following our intuition and following our gut and just keep on digging. And I think like people have to really advocate for their horse. Like I went down the whole path of, I did the right thing and I went to the vet and they did the x-rays and they had the best farrier and he trimmed his feet the way they were supposed to be trimmed. But I'm like, something is still not right here. And you were like, yeah, these feet are not right. And I was like, remember for like a year, I was like, Shayleigh, can we check in and ask him about his feet? Can we ask him about his feet? And he's like, his feet are fine. And then when you finally saw his feet, you were like, shit, his feet aren't fine.
But
Like
what's crazy about that though, and that's why like animal communication can be so subjective, because he had such he was leading you to the root cause at that time. Like
Exactly.
you weren't ready for the feet because you would have gone for the feet and never found the neck.
Yeah, exactly. And what is super cool about that is I feel like over this journey that I've had with him and the areas that he's pointed me into, if they had been a quick fix, I would have fixed it and went on. Right. So he's like, no, not going to be a quick fix. You're going to learn something else. Yeah, nope. You think you got it. You're going to learn something else. Oh, you think you got it now? Nope. Sorry. You're going to keep learning. And what I got from him was like, you know how to ride. Like, you don't need that right now, but you need these pieces. So in order for you to continue to do what you're going to do and be in the horse world and in the horse community, you have to have these pieces. Like, you have to meet these people, you have to have these connections, you have to learn these things. And at some point you'll have a horse that you can use this knowledge as well and ride. Right. He's like, but I'm not your riding horse. But the super cool part about that, that I feel like I have a decent grasp on the body. I know there's still a ton more to learn about it, and I'm going to keep pursuing that. But it's kind of shifted around to where, I've got the help of Daisy now, Daisy Bicking, and she's got a special shoeing package on him that he wants to engage more with me now. And he is okay with me riding him. But I know that it's going to be, do you want to go for a ride today? Or he looks at me and I'm like, oh, you want to go for a ride today? And we can get on. And our ride is like, whatever he wants to do. Like, if he wants to walk and trot, if he wants to canter, then fine. But you were here at the EOC clinic. I mean, he cantered and he had not cantered in over 2 years. So it was like, couldn't push it. He just tells me, yeah, we can do this today, or no, we can't. But it's cool that I feel like I've learned a lot from him, and he's kind of like, okay, you want to go for a little ride? Let's go for a little ride. And he wants to do it now. It's his idea now. But I almost feel like, oh, he's like giving me a little bit of a reward for all this effort because I do want to ride.
And I had a similar situation that I've talked about before with my little red dragon, where I bought him with the intention of having a baby that no one has handled, and I was going to go do cow horse stuff with, and I was so excited because I was going to go show, and finally I'd be a legitimate trainer that people would look at. Like, I don't just do problem horses, like I can also do other things. And then he has like navicular, and he has just other things where it was like, your choice is to go push this and do all these things to make him look sound. And you can go do all the things because he's very talented. But it was like that point where I had to make the decision of, like, do I want this horse for, ever? And I had Rochelle actually was the one that was out here, and she did a session with us, and she was like, he says he's not here for you to show. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's what he's gonna do. This chick doesn't know anything about horses, and she doesn't know what I've been through and how much money I've spent. And then he was like, now I'll go dead lame. And then what?
Yeah.
But you had said, I'm not your riding horse, but that leads me to want to talk about a potential riding horse you might have coming into your life.
Yeah. I went through a little spell where I was like, you know what? If I can't do these things with him, do I really want to have horses? Like, I'm fine with just, I'll always have him in my life. I'll always have some horses, but if it's not him, do I really want to keep doing this? And, I started to kind of look for other horses, and every time I thought I found something, he would pop into my head and be like, no, nope, not happening. And I'm like, damn, there's like, I'm not going to find anything out there. So maybe I'm just going to end up out of horses, and we'll sell our farm, and, we'll just go build a house and he can live in my backyard. And I found one. Well, actually, it was after your mirror session, that he said, like, I'm not your riding horse, but your riding horse is out there. And it was like 2 hours later, because I had been looking, but I'd been getting such hard no's from him. Like every horse I pulled up, he's like, nope, I don't want you to ride that one. Nope, you're not gonna nope. And I'm like, damn, it's not going to happen. And then after your mirror session, I actually like flipped open my phone or something. And I had even reached out to somebody to get horse that was like full on, like they were riding him, but he had a lot of issues. And I sent a message to my friend. I'm like, should I get this horse? She was like, hell no. Like, are you crazy? Why would you do that? I'm like, oh, I don't know. But then I opened up and Tara Davis, one of her little videos popped up and her little baby went bouncing across. Like a bunch of horses were running out onto the track and the baby was the last one. And then it zoomed on by everybody. And I was like, oh, she's cute. And then I was like, oh, she's really cute. And then like it literally was so instant. As soon as I saw that, it was the same as when I bought KD. Like I saw him and I was like, oh, yeah, that's my horse. But I sent Tara a message and I was like, so what's up with that baby? Um, does she have a home? Does she need a home? And she was like, oh no. Cause I was like, cause ha ha ha, she's really my type. And she was like, oh no, she doesn't. And I've been meaning to say that she's for sale. And, I've just been waiting for her to call in her right person. And haha, you're that type. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. So literally before I knew any details, I didn't know what she was. I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know what her birthday was, like what size she might be. I like big horses, and it just so happens that she's going to be a big horse. And Tara right away was like, this horse is going to be somebody's riding horse. Like she is going to be fun. She wants to be ridden. And I'm like, oh, and immediately KD was like, yeah, she's cool. But he was like, she's cool because you won't be riding her for a few years anyway. So it gives us plenty of time.
That's so funny too, because my horses chose Fern. I was like, you were with me on that little journey after Bro made his transition. And I was like, I don't know why, but I know that I have to start looking for another horse. And I was like, I'm not unhappy with the 2.5 that I have, but I just felt like it's weird. Like, I don't know. I felt this strong pull to look for her. And as you know, like I sent you a bunch of different ads, you were sending me ads, and like there were a couple where it's like, should we do this? And it's just so interesting too, because all of those horses that you kind of shuffle through and you're like, no, but I wish them well. No, but I wish them well. It like it calibrates your energy to where when you like with Fern, I didn't even look at her. She was straight off the track and I didn't even look at her video. It's literally, I saw her and I was not looking for a filly at all, but I was just like, bam, sent the girl the money like immediately and was like, this is my horse. And what's fun about that too is it's another like and I'm not going to be riding her for a few years too. And and Biggie keeps telling me, so Biggie's like my KD. And he's like, yeah, you're not going to be riding her for a while. You really need to get all of your kinks out with me because you got a few and we got to work on like the saddling practices. So like he told me the other day, like, you're probably never going to ride me. Like you'll probably sit on me, but honestly, like my body, it's been through a lot. Like you're probably never going to ride me, but like, I want you to work on like those things with me. Like I want to be that muse. And it's really cool. I was actually telling my friend Donna the other day, like he's helping me regulate my nervous system and realizing like how anxious that I usually am. And when I worked with Kip the other day, who I've had for like almost 10 years, I was like, good God, your nervous system is horrible. Like I took him for a walk and he was like snorting and I couldn't get him like back down. And I haven't been doing anything with my other horses. I've only been working with Biggie. And I'm like, wow, Biggie, we have really been doing some work. Like if I needed some validation, this was it because I could not control Kip. And I'm like, wow, I got some backtracking to do. But I think there's something super powerful about making that decision yourself because it's so funny how you can be introduced to other people's fears. You can be introduced to other people's opinions. And I know I said that to you when I got Fern, where I was like, it was so empowering that I saw her and I just made the choice myself. I didn't send her to anybody. I didn't want anybody's input. I just knew that it was mine. And so I'm curious with Asteria, like how, knowing all you know now, like how does it feel moving forward into the unknown with the baby and your new knowledge, and like how do you feel about all of it?
I don't want to jinx myself like I did with KD. When Liz was like, oh,
that's why I said the potential riding horse is like easy, everyone.
Exactly.
Open for whatever.
Exactly. I also was the same. Like when Shayleigh, when you were sending us like pictures and stuff of horses and we'd be like, yes, no, whatever. And then you were just like, oh, look at the one I bought. Super cool. Mm-hmm. It was the same thing with Asteria. It was just like, I didn't even mention it to my husband. Like it was like within 5 minutes, it was a done deal. And then I was like, oh, so how tall do you think she'll be? And what color is she going to be? Like, I didn't know any of that stuff. And what is her breed? I think I asked that like 3 days later. So what actually is she? But like to have this, well, a filly for me, like I have not had a mare in so long and I love my boys. And I never would have thought that I would have gotten a filly, let alone a freaking 6-month-old baby at the time. I was like, wow, well, this is really interesting. So I know that she's going to open new doors for me to continue to learn new things, because this will be starting a baby in a way that's going to be totally different. And I cannot wait to do it. Like, I think it is going to be so fun, to take the tools that I have now and whatever I'm going to be learning in the next several years and to play with them with her. I think that we will end up, having a phenomenal relationship. And, I hope that we get to ride. I think that it's there, but at the end of the day, if it's not, it doesn't matter either, because again, when I saw her, I knew it was immediate. And it was no questions asked, like whatever I get is what I get. Like instead of like when I bought KD, I'm like, these are the things we're doing, but I'll do whatever he wants to do. But this time, like, I know now I can say whatever we end up doing is fine. If I don't ever get to ride her, that's fine too. Like, I know that she has a ton of lessons to teach me, because the way that when I saw her and knew it was done. So I'm excited for it. I think it's gonna be fun.
You know what's so interesting too is, so Amber and I just did the manifesting magic thing, and I know you were a part of that, and it kind of guided me to create this foundation series of posts on my Facebook, on my Facebook. I'm like, what do I call that? My page. And it really made me reflect, because I was thinking about all the things that I want to manifest this year and like the feelings and emotions behind them. And it made me think back to, okay, where was I vibrationally when I manifested each one of my animals, and what has come to fruition with those animals? And when I think with, like, going back to Biggie and how he's like, yeah, you're not gonna be entitled to me. I remember thinking like, oh yeah, his person, because the person messaged me and was like, do you have space in your heart? And I was like, no. And she was like, are you sure? Because Dover had just died. And she's like, I know it's been 2 days since Dover. Do you have space? And I was like, no, don't. And then she like sent me a bunch of pictures of him. And like, I was like, you know what? I did the same thing with Kip too, where I was like, send me a lunging video, and if he's sound, I'll consider it. And these damn horses, they'll be sound on a video. And then I bring them home and they're like, okay, just needed to pass the exam. But with Biggie, it's like my vibration was like, I don't really want him. I felt pressured into him, even though this is nothing to say about his previous person. She was so sweet. And if I would have said no, she, like she really did right by him. But my dominant vibration was of a little bit of like, not resentment, but I was just kind of like unsure. And then she also was like, yeah, he has a bucking problem. And my initial thought was like, oh, well, maybe she's just not super confident. Like, I'll fucking get on him and ride him and like fix that bucking problem. And no, that didn't happen. Everybody knows this story because it's a very humbling one that I've told many a time. And he has shown me, so like it's just interesting because he has reflected that like no, that resounding no that I had when I manifested him, or when he came into my life. He has reflected that resounding no and has taught me so much about boundaries and about how not to say yes when you want to say no, which in hindsight, I'm glad that I have him. But when I look at the foundation of our relationship, I totally said yes when I wanted to say no. And all of our lessons have been rooted in that. And then he told me yesterday, yeah, I'll give you a little bit of a break now because you really got to the bottom of it. Like you kind of understand now. So we can kind of move forward. It took me a while to figure it out. But so when you think about it from the perspective of our babies, so with Fern and with Asteria, I don't know about you, but I was pretty clear with Fern. Like when I started looking for another horse, I was like focusing on the feeling. Like I was like, I want a horse for my horses. I want to feel, I came up with like a little mantra or like a word where I was like, I want to manifest a horse that embodies the feeling of like being safe and just like grounded. Like I wanted just like a grounded, safe, like, because that's how I felt with Bro. He was so spooky and whatever, but I always felt safe around him. And for some reason that was important to me. And that's her. Like she can come galloping across the field to me and I just know that I don't have to move. Like she's going to be super safe. So with you, like, and the way that you have been learning through Katie and manifesting her from this space of like freedom and possibility and all of that, it's just kind of cool how that's the foundation of your relationship.
Yeah, I think it's totally cool. And I know, like, I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do with the baby, but I know I can leave her there for a while. So that's cool. So that took a little pressure off because I was like, oh my gosh, now what am I doing? Like, what am I going to do with a baby? I haven't had a baby on my farm in so long. Don't have any
The
other
nursery's
babies.
not set up.
Yeah, the nursery's not ready. Um, but then it's so interesting here. Like in the last month, I've been like, I have the itch like really, really bad. And I was like, all right, I got to get her home. And so, I've been looking into shippers and stuff like that. So actually, I was pretty wishy-washy about when she was going to come home, but now it looks like she'll be coming home in April or May. Well, she'll have to be here before Shayleigh comes for a May clinic so that you can meet her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyhow, I feel like I'm like, well, she can stay there as long as she wants to stay there. And then I feel like something changed where she's like, okay, you're going to be my person. I'm ready to come see you. So let's get on with it.
Yeah, totally. I love it. That's so awesome. Well, I'm kind of looking at the time and I want to be respectful of your time, but I feel like we'll never live it down if we don't talk about Chip. We have got to
Oh,
talk about him on the
he's
podcast,
like
and then Amber's
my
gonna have to
hero.
insert. We're gonna have to insert a picture of him.
How about the
Can
video
you
from
talk
this
about?
morning? I literally just saw the video from this morning, and it was like as I was coming in the house, and I just like flipped open Facebook, and I was like, God, I love that freaking horse, dude. It's so good.
Yeah, Chip, that was my
And
daughter's.
does he vet the borders?
Oh, he's pretty, I don't know. Probably so. Probably so. I know he definitely will pick out the horses that he likes. Like when they come in for clinics and stuff, they're like, oh, you need some help? Let me come stand over here for you. Like totally emotional support pony. People, he's so. Like
For
honestly,
those people that are listening and they don't know because they don't follow you, and if they don't, you should go follow her so that you can, for no other reason, see Chip. Explain to the people who
yeah.
Chip is.
Okay, Chip is my daughter's pony, and my daughter's now 19. And we got him when when my daughter was 5 or 6. And he is the cutest little thing. And he used to really be scared of people. He was not handled very well, not from the trainer we bought him from. She was great, but the previous owners were not very kind to him because he's a little pony. He's only 13 too, cute as a button, super fancy. And it took us several years to even be able to walk up to him. Like he would pin his ears at us and like hide in the corner. And if he got loose, heaven forbid, you were not catching him. Like good luck. He would just come to you when he was ready. So it was always like, don't let Chip out, make sure it's shut. Don't let him sneak out the gate because you'll never catch him. But he is now the free range pony and he runs all over my property. And we've caught him on like trail cameras up in my woods all by himself. He basically, if you're going to board here, like you have to be okay with that pony being loose. So he does all kinds of things. Like he gets in my lounge and he eats apples, but he doesn't eat all of them. He just takes little bites out of them. And if you leave the tack room door open, he goes in there and he goes through everybody's tack boxes and he finds cookies and he'll go to the bathroom in there purposely, I'm pretty sure. But today I was teaching a lesson and before I even let the lady get on, Chip comes running up the driveway and goes into the arena and he rolls and he gets up and he's looking all innocent. And I was like, I should take his video because I haven't shared any good videos in a while. And I literally like I cut out the part where I said his name, but like I said his name and he turned and looked at me like, hold on. And he took off running after Kara and Val and like did a circle around him. And he's like, anyhow. Yeah. Yep.
It's so funny.
And then he wouldn't leave the arena. He was like running around in there for like 5 minutes, and I couldn't let Mary Ellen get on Dino because, Chip is in there having a heyday. So once he left the arena and went flying down the driveway, then I was like, okay, it's all better.
Yeah, he's freaking hilarious, but he also really does have his own little medicine because I'll never forget at one of the clinics, he like marched into the arena. There was a horse that was like having issues and couldn't relax, stood by the horse. The horse like yawned and did its thing, and then Chip just left and like went back to the barn. So like he really is so intuitive. And I know he's a little stinker because I was there with my sister-in-law one time and she had her horses in the barn and he stood purposely across from her little bay mare, like probably 2 feet away, and just like parked himself and slept there. And she would like take a bite of hay and then snake her head out of the thing and like pin her ears for like for like an hour probably. She was worked up just pinning her ears, and he was like had a leg rested and was sleeping. And I just thought it was hilarious that he like parked himself in front of her.
He does. And every single clinic I have, like if we have chairs set up in the aisleway, or if we're working on horses in the aisle or whatever, like he'll be right in there. Like we've had so many circles, like with chairs and stuff, and he'll be like all up, like just hanging out right at the end, like sitting with everybody. And like in the arena, or like when people are like coming in and checking in for a clinic or whatever, he'll be like right at the table. like, don't touch me, but you can feed me if you want. But I'm just here.
So I feel like we didn't really talk about enough about what you do because, okay, obviously you give riding lessons in North Carolina, but you're also clinicking and doing all the things. And like, what if people want to work with you? What if people, I mean, you've done so much. I feel like we've really undersold you and talked about all your horses. I'm like, hold on. Everyone needs to work with Stacia. Like, you've taken my animal communication class and you're really good at it. In fact, like you're my go-to person if I can't get a clear message with like my own animals. Like you are the first person I would go to. You host clinics, you work with balance through movement. Like, do you want to talk about any of that in case someone wants to take a sip of your energy?
So I think one of my passions lies with rider biomechanics. And I know biomechanics is such a buzzword, but I've trained under Mary Wanless, and she's from the UK, and I adore her. I've hosted her several times. I've ridden with her probably 12 times. I'm still working on my teacher certification with her. I just have to submit some videos, but I just need to get around to submitting videos, but I love rider biomechanics. And it's really cool now because her work and the way that she has taught us to teach other people makes it very user friendly. Like we break down the really complicated stuff so that you can figure it out with your body. And she uses a lot of visualization. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I wonder if she even realizes like what she's really touching on here with it's the whole ride with your mind thing. And what we change in our bodies, and then how the horses mirror it and change it in their bodies, which is super cool. So I do love that. And I have more people getting on and riding now because we've done all the other work and now we can get back in the saddle. I absolutely love doing that. And the horses love doing it. So I always get hits from the horses or downloads from the horses, like when I'm teaching, or like if I'm doing a Zoom session, like I get information from the horses as well as just being able to see what's going on. So it's fun to put that stuff together. I do host a bunch of clinics here. So anybody around this area, I always try to bring in clinicians that are for the betterment of the horse. It may be about their feet, might be about the body, it might be about the nervous system, it might be about riding, it might be in handwork. But I try to have really cool people here, and folks in this area can come and attend those clinics. And then I've been one of Celeste's balance through movement method trainers for over a year. And I've been traveling and doing clinics for over a year as well. I do a lot of Zoom lessons. I have a bunch of clinics coming up. So that's a lot of fun. And that's just, teaching people how to help unwind compensation patterns, read the body, fire on the proper muscles to help them move more balanced through space. And that works out really well with the rider biomechanic part too. They kind of go hand in hand. So it's actually what I do along with running the boarding barn and teaching at home.
Fun. And then, so if people do want to work with you, where do they find you? What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, I would say the best way is probably just find me on Facebook. I think I have a farm website, but I've never even really looked at it. Somebody made it for me. I looked at it several years ago, but honestly, the best way would be send me a message there or on the Balance Through Movement Method website. I have an email on there and people can book online lessons there. And that has been super fun because that being able to do a Zoom lesson has like connected. I mean, it's connected people around the world, which is so fun. I'm like, I can't believe I'm teaching a lesson to someone in Australia and somebody in the UK and like in the Netherlands. I'm like, this is so, so cool. It's super fun.
I know.
Nice.
My sister does my admin work and I saw her little reply to someone the other day. She's like, hello in Zimbabwe. Like she was so excited. She's like, this is so cool how you get to just like talk with people around the world. I think the same thing. It's so cool. And if people have a pivo, it just goes in a circle. It's like really opened possibilities.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's all about networking and just like you guys are doing, drawing in like-minded people and, opening up doors for people and planting seeds, all for the horse, all for the horse and the human.
Yes. Little gardeners.
Yeah. Gardeners,
Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. And I'm just dying to hang out with you again. And I'm just cannot wait until you get that little baby at your house. Well, that's going to be super exciting. So thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for having me. And the timing was perfect because literally my laptop just showed up in red and it's like low battery.
Vending time as always.
That was perfect.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.